Caleb Mercer had not planned on disappearing, but the land made the decision feel reasonable. After 20 years in the teams, quiet had become less of a luxury and more of a medical necessity. Noise lived in his bones now, in the pauses between breaths, in the way sleep never stayed long. So when he found a forgotten parcel near an old logging route, priced lower than it should have been, he didn't ask many questions. He sold his truck, kept only essentials and bought the silence, hoping space might succeed where time had failed. He wanted something that stayed. His only company was Atlas, a sable German shepherd with steady amber eyes and the disciplined stillness of a working dog. Atlas had served beside him overseas, trained to read tremors in air and tone, to sense what humans ignored. On the drive north, the dog sat upright, watching tree lines slide past as if memorizing them. Caleb talked to him the way some men prayed, quietly without expecting answers. When the gravel road ended at a meadow edged by pine and silver birch, Atlas's ears twitched once, cataloging the place before stepping out with calm caution learned hard way. Setting camp took less than an hour. Caleb worked methodically, measuring ground slope, checking sight lines, noting where water would run after heavy rain. Atlas ranged in quiet arcs, nose low, tail level, never wandering beyond an invisible boundary between them. The meadow looked ordinary: late summer grass, scattered wildflowers, dragonflies skimming warm air. Yet twice the dog paused, head tilted toward the darker stretch of forest beyond the rise. Caleb felt the shift each time, a tightening just beneath his ribs. He said nothing, only watched, trusting instincts that had survived longer than certainty earned in places he never named. As evening settled, shadows pooled along the tree line, and the quiet he had purchased began to feel aware. Caleb lit a small cooking fire and sat with his back to a fallen log. Atlas stretched nearby but not asleep. The forest carried layered sounds: insects, distant water, leaves shifting in slow breaths. Then Atlas stood. No bark, no growl, just stillness pointed toward the woods. Caleb followed his gaze and saw nothing, only trunks and deepening shade. Still the dog did not move. Caleb exhaled softly. Whatever waited out there had just announced itself without making a sound tonight. Morning brought clarity but not comfort. Dew silvered the grass and sunlight spilled across the meadow in clean, forgiving lines. Caleb brewed coffee over a compact stove while Atlas stood facing the forest again, posture balanced, attention fixed. "Show me," Caleb murmured, slinging a small pack over one shoulder. They moved toward the rise where the dog had paused the night before. Halfway up, Atlas slowed, then stopped completely. The grass here grew thinner, color slightly off, as if the soil beneath remembered pressure. Caleb crouched, pressing his palm to the ground. It felt firmer, reluctant, like earth holding breath. He marked the spot in his notebook instead of digging. Experience had taught him that first discoveries deserved patience. Atlas traced a line forward, nose hovering inches above the ground, weaving between saplings until metal flashed dully through soil. A narrow rail, half buried, ran straight through the forest as if laid yesterday. Caleb followed it in silence, counting steps, noting direction. The trees thinned into a concealed clearing where a small wooden canopy sheltered a single railcar, paint long faded to flat gray. It sat perfectly aligned, not derelict, not maintained, simply waiting for someone who knew its purpose. Inside, the air smelled faintly of oil and old metal, not rot. A bolted table, shelves of labeled tins, a compact stove, everything arranged with working efficiency. On one wall, a small placard read, "Monitoring Station. Do not disturb." Caleb felt a familiar weight settle behind his sternum. This wasn't shelter, it was infrastructure. Atlas stopped at the doorway, body squared, blocking the threshold without touching him. Caleb scanned the floor and saw a section of boards newer than the rest. Seems too precise. He didn't open it. Not yet. Some doors asked for witnesses, not curiosity or silence alone. That afternoon he drove to the nearest town for maps and answers. The county clerk confirmed the parcel's records thinned strangely near the lake. A surveyor mentioned soil behaving in straight lines. An old mechanic muttered about rail shipments that came through years ago and were never discussed again. A ranger advised caution without asking why. Then a well-dressed developer offered cash for the land before Caleb had even unpacked fully. Atlas, waiting in the truck, went rigid at the man's approach. Caleb declined the offer, pulse steady. Mystery was one thing. Urgency from strangers was another and deeply wrong. He returned at dawn with rope, lights, and the calm focus he used before hard entries. Atlas watched as Caleb lifted the floor panel, revealing concrete steps descending into dry, cool air. At the bottom lay shelves of sealed containers, dated lake samples, and rolled maps marked with spreading shaded zones. An environmental monitoring bunker, built to track contamination, then abandoned without explanation. Caleb documented everything carefully, touching little, recording positions in his notebook. When he climbed back out, the forest felt thinner somehow. Atlas pressed against his leg, reading the change in him before he spoke a word aloud. Before he could decide his next step, Atlas bolted toward the lakeshore, barking sharp, urgent bursts. Caleb followed at a run and found a young boy trapped knee-deep in sucking mud near the waterline, each struggle dragging him lower. Caleb anchored his rope to a tree and moved carefully, voice steady, eyes level. Atlas stood between the child and deeper ground, body braced like a living barrier. With slow, constant pressure, Caleb pulled the boy free. Moments later, frantic parents crashed through the brush. Gratitude shook their voices. Atlas simply sat, watchful, as if saving lives were routine by now. That night Caleb made the call he once would have avoided. He reached an old contact who understood evidence, chain of custody, and quiet operations. By morning, state environmental officers arrived without sirens, documenting the bunker, sealing it properly, and testing soil and water. They offered Caleb a way out, sell the land, sign papers, forget what he'd seen. A developer appeared too, smiling, ready with a generous check. Atlas stood at Caleb's side, gaze steady on the man's polished shoes. Caleb declined both offers. Some places weren't meant to be owned. They were meant to be guarded instead forever. Evening settled warm and gold over the meadow days later. Most of the rail line had been removed, but a short section remained, marked and documented, a reminder rather than a threat. Atlas lay beside it, chin resting near the cool steel, eyes half closed yet aware. Caleb sat on the log, brushing the dog's coat in slow strokes, feeling a quiet he could finally trust. Peace, he realized, wasn't isolation. It was participation with boundaries. He had come here to disappear. Instead, he had stayed, listened, and chosen to stand watch, exactly where he was needed all along anyway.